In the dense core of urban Minneapolis, barely spitting distance from one of the largest universities in the country, sits a structure that could not seem more out of place. Its imposing concrete walls and rusty industrial components stand in stark contrast to the modern, fast-paced neighborhood that sits in its shadow. This is the ADM Delmar No. 4 grain elevator, better known as the United Crushers. The grain that once filled these elevators is long gone, so why is it still here? What role might the elevators play in a 21st century city? And could a historic designation help? Or would it only hold the elevators back from their true potential? The United Crushers are located in Minneapolis' Prospect Park neighborhood, which has long been divided by University Avenue into a residential south and an industrial north. Dick Gilliard is a retired architect, Prospect Park resident, and one of the people who has done the most to shape the neighborhood's future.
The area north of University, east of the campus and north of University Avenue had been, at the turn of the century, a forest of grain elevators. And it was some say, and I have no reason to doubt this, it was the largest concentration of grain storage in the world. And this was just a forest of these giant concrete, and there were some metal elevators as well, but primarily concrete elevators.
The ADM Delmar Elevator No. 4 was constructed between 1925 and 1931, at the time the largest grain elevator in the country. The rail yards at the northern end of the neighborhood provided easy access to markets across the country. But the forces of deindustrialization took their toll. The elevator was closed in the 1980s and left to decay. By the turn of the century, the northern end of Prospect Park had not yet found its place in Minnesota's new economy.
We surveyed, and the market research we did before when this was getting underway, if you discount just the first row of properties along University Avenue and then everything north, there were 16 jobs north of University, north of that commercial strip.
During this time, the now abandoned Delmar No. 4 took on a new life and a new name. It became a popular destination for urban explorers, squatters, and artists like the United Crushers, a local graffiti collective who painted their name on the structure sometime in the early 2000s, and has colloquially borne their name ever since. But with the coming of the Metro Green Line, change was afoot. There would be 3 new light rail stations in Prospect Park, connecting this post-industrial wasteland to the University of Minnesota and both downtowns. Dick Gilliard was one of many who saw the transformative potential for this area, but they didn't want it to be just another development.
We said, how could this be really a mix, a race zoning, and mix living, working, making, arts and culture all together in a high-density concentration of these elements. And then we said, over and above that, how does this become really a demonstration of the kind of development we're going to have to do in the 21st century? How can it be knit together by a connecting public realm? How can it be served by a district stormwater system that captured every drop of rain that falls on the place for potential reuse? How can we develop a district heating and cooling and or energy system to serve this area? And then how do we park all of the cars that are going to come if we're able to do that?
He founded Towerside, the nonprofit that has guided the metamorphosis of this crumbling industrial district into a new neighborhood that aspires to be the most innovative in the country.
Let's call this something. Let's call this an innovation district. And what that does is that allows city staff to look at doing things in a different way. It might be as simple as the lighting fixture on the street. The curb design might be different to capture water versus just funnel it to the sewer. So it allows staff to explore things that would be different without saying to other neighborhoods, we're going to let everybody do that. And so that was a very big deal.
2014 was a landmark year for the area, seeing the opening of both the Green Line and the gigantic Surly Brewery. Since then, change has occurred at lightning speed. Today, the Towerside Innovation District is filling up with apartments and parks, dining and drinking. But the United Crushers still sit empty above. Do these abandoned grain elevators still have a place in this hyper-modern neighborhood?
From the start, we viewed the elevators, the grain elevators, United Crushers, as a one-of-a-kind asset. There was a planner here from England early on in the planning of the light rail. And in touring the site, the entire Green Line, and looking at what was going around the proposed station areas, he commented on the elevators, and it was his quote. He said, "These are your pyramids. And these are, this is the most powerful thing on the entire Green Line. And, be sure you treasure these and do everything you can to save them and utilize them."
And it's not just their stature within the neighborhood that makes the United Crushers worthy of preservation.
The way they're constructed is unique. They did some, continuous pour slip forming of those elevators. So the actual construction process is very unique. And of course, there's a tremendous amount of the elevators that you don't see underground. So there's a third of that about underground, supporting all of that weight and the base for that.
Between its association with Minneapolis's grain milling history and the uniqueness of its construction methods, the United Crushers seems like a great candidate for historic preservation. It certainly exhibits great integrity in its location, design, materials, and feeling. But Wall Companies, the structure's owner, has been uninterested in designating the property, preferring instead to keep their options open.
The firm that bought the property that the elevators sit on, the Wall Companies, they had $1 million grant from the state to tear the elevators down. And at the time, they were pursuing the development of a medical device complex adjacent to the university, like a lot of other universities have done. And John was never able to get the university excited about that, so that never happened.
The elevators are no longer in any immediate danger of being demolished, but this raises the question, what should be done with the massive structure? Towerside has looked into converting it into a parking ramp, but this has proven infeasible. Another idea is to use it once again as storage, but this time not for grain. The Towerside neighborhood has a district stormwater system, meaning the neighborhood's stormwater is collected and reused. Perhaps the elevators could store this water, eliminating the need to build additional metal water tanks. Other proposals have been even more ambitious.
Recently, a company has come forward with the idea to use it for generating electricity. And that is the idea of using solar batteries to lift water to the top of these columns. And then when you need the energy, letting the water go, turning generators, generating electricity. And evidently the economics of this are such that if the power is free, then raising it way up 300 feet in the air, and dropping it when you want to create electricity to store, this is evidently, at least on paper, feasible. So that's another idea.
Given the wide range of ideas on the table for the elevators, perhaps it is understandable that Wall Companies is hesitant to designate the structure. And at this point, maybe it's better to maintain some flexibility. But if it were up to Towerside, the elevators would not be subject to the whims of a developer, and historic designation would simply be the sensible path.
Yeah, we the community have always been anxious to get those monuments designated. The owner has not been willing to pursue that. Why should he be willing to do that over and above the idea that it's the right thing to do?
While nonprofits and city officials continue working to transform the Towerside neighborhood, the United Crushers sit empty, awaiting the day their owner decides their fate. This decision will be rooted not in innovation or sustainability, but profit, and will abide by the standards of preservation only if it helps the developer's bottom line. Historic designation could be an important check on this profit motive, but that's precisely why it's unlikely to happen. In the meantime, those who see their value can only gaze up at these towering concrete cylinders, remember their history, and wonder what will become of the pyramids of Prospect Park.